Ladies and gentlemen, welcome! All aboard! All aboard! All aboard the train that never stops. The YouTube channel that always delivers. The YouTube channel that gets you from A to B at a reasonable pace. The YouTube channel that talks to you daily or every other day about motorcycles. Welcome to another video. It's your boy, the hungriest of hornets. Prolific YouTuber now. Videos are definitely adding up, aren't they? Insane amount of videos being released at this channel at the minute. Also, I do say so myself, an insane amount of views recently. We're killing it in the shorts game and we're killing it in the long game at the minute. So thank you very much for your assistance and your support on this channel. And today's video we are going to be talking about the incredible world of Chinese motorcycles. Yes, are Chinese bikes really that bad? Are Chinese bikes really that unreliable? Are Chinese bikes really that undesirable? Now, this might surprise you because obviously I am the Hungry Hornet. I ride a Japanese Honda Hornet 750. But back in the day, and by back in the day I mean 3 years ago, I was happily riding around on my Lexmoto RSS. And what a beast it was. I'll put a picture of it up now. Look at that. Oh, look at that bike. What a beauty she was. She weighed 164 kilos. She went 72 miles an hour. And she rusted quite quickly. However, she's heavy, she's made of solid metal, and she was a bit unwieldy. However, she was very fairly priced. She was fun to ride, and she was reliable enough. I got nearly 4,000 miles out of her before I had problems. And this video is just examining whether or not Chinese bikes are as bad as people say they are. And by people I mean motorcyclists, and by motorcyclists I mean people that only ride you know, certain bike brands. Like for instance, now you could even argue I'm a bit of a snob. I ride a Honda. All the bikes I own since then have been a Honda. My first ever bike was a Honda CBF 125, and this bike here, you know, is a amazing bike. I own a Grom, another Honda. I've not ventured into the other brands, so to speak. I've not really looked at a Suzuki. I've not really looked at you know, anything like that. I've not looked at a Triumph even, and that's a, you know, big British bike brand. So it's you know, it's safe to say I am a little bit of a bike snob. However, are Chinese bikes that bad? Now, the first Chinese bike I owned, and the last Chinese bike I owned, was the Lexmoto RSS1. Or RS1, I can't remember what it's called, to be fair. I think it's RSS1. It sounded like a sort of infantry troop type situation. It sounded like they were about to break through the ceiling and kidnap the Venezuelan president. The RSS are on it. But anyway, yes, so like I bought it in the summer of some sort of 2023, I'd like to say it was, and I bought it, and it wasn't summer, it was April. By the winter, or no, by January I believe the next year, it was out of action, and that was purely based on the fact that I got a stone chip in my radiator. I didn't realise it was leaking until it was too late. Still decided to ride with it with a leaky radiator. Because of that, I ended up blowing the top end of it. Just the gasket went on it, just because the radiator was fucked. So you know, it ended up spending a bit of time in the shop. Lexmoto's, you know, warranty, they paid for everything. The only thing I had to pay for was the, you know, the unwarranty stuff, like the new oil that they had to put into the engine, and the antifreeze they had to put in the radiator, all that sort of stuff. So you know, Bob's your uncle, fan is your aunt. There you go. Did that experience ruin the idea of me buying another Chinese bike? No, it didn't. I think it could have, you know, the stone chip was kind of my fault. There's no rad guard on it. I was a bit more naive. I didn't, you know, if I'd noticed, I had noticed the problem that it was leaking, and I didn't do anything about it at all. It was my fault. So there you go. You know, it wasn't, you know, Lexmoto's fault. They ended up, you know, reimbursing me and all that, and then I ended up selling it for profit. Well, not for profit, but I got my money, got a bit of money back. I sold it actually to Billy. You know, Billy, it's on this channel once in a while. He's now got an SV650. But yeah, that's how me and him met, was he bought my bike off me, and then we became friends. So, you know, I guess that's a good thing. The bike, you know, and when he sold the bike, I was a bit annoyed with him, because I was like, I would have bought that back, to be fair. I would have, you know, bought that back. But c'est la vie, was not the case to be. So yeah, you know, did that ruin my, you know, no, it didn't. The bike was cheap. The crazy thing is, talking to the dealer at the time, he told me how much he buys them in for. They pretty much make a 50% profit on top of the bikes. You know, they buy them in very cheap. Basically, he bought it for half the price of what the retail value is, and then they make it on top. They say Chinese bike profit splits are amazing. I know that as a dealer, like, you know, the Honda and all that, they hardly make any profit on their bikes. You know, it all goes back to the manufacturer, I guess. So, you know, that's quite interesting. You know, Chinese bikes are very profitable for dealerships. They like them. They're cheap, and you know, some of the bikes that they got are cheap as hell, like really cheap. You can buy some bike. I think Lexmoto do a Scooter A for like 1,400 quid or 1,300 quid, something incredible like that. But then again, I think Piaggio, or no, Suzuki do a really cheap scooter as well. So it's swings and roundabouts. You know, would I go for one again? Yes, 100%. And I've got a little bit of a plan for the future for a nice Chinese bike. I don't want to give it all away, but let's just say, you know, the channel might be getting a Chinese bike to do some experiments on, like Frankenstein. I think Chinese bikes get a bad rap. I do. I think, you know, like we've discussed it in previous videos, you know, some of the best selling bikes in the country are Chinese bikes, and I think they're getting there. I think, you know, the next couple of years they'll get there, and there's some big, you know, well, I believe one of the Chinese brands is entering the super bikes championships. Can't remember what that one is though. I think it's, I want to say CF Moto. I want to say CF Moto. I'm entering it. If I'm wrong, I apologise. But yeah, and they've got some good bikes. You're getting a bit of like mid-brand, mid-range Chinese bikes now that are competing with your top range or mid-level, middleweight bikes of the Japanese bikes, and they're pricing them a bit more accordingly, like, you know. So it's interesting, isn't it? And I think we should all brace ourselves. You know, if obviously the planet doesn't explode due to World War III in the next couple of years, we will see. I reckon we'll see a vast improvement on Chinese bikes. I think they've come a long way. Before, you know, you weren't able to take your motorcycle out if it was Chinese in the rain because it didn't affect the electronics. But now I think you rarely get problems like that. I think, you know, if you buy a bit more of a premium feel Chinese bike, you might get a little bit more bang for your buck, if you like. So yeah, definitely rate a Chinese bike. You know, it's not, you know, it might not be the most popular opinion, but I think they're a little bit underrated. I think they allow a segment of a proportion of the population to enjoy motorcycles at a more affordable rate. That's what I think Chinese bikes allow, and I think they give you a bit more they're a bit more daring with their styling as well. They take some risks. They like a retro look. I think some of the finishes on the Chinese bikes look quite good. I remember my RSS had decent finishing. By finishing, I mean welding. It was quite nice. It looked quite good. I think the Chinese bikes are coming into their own, and I think that's a good thing. I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with a Chinese bike at the end of the day. I might be, you know, I probably it's not a popular opinion. I don't think many people will agree with this. I think people like to stick to what they know. They like what they like, and you know, there's not, you know, you can't beat the quality and the reliability of, you know, a Honda, Suzuki, you know, Kawasaki, you got all sorts, you got you know, and even the reliability of a Triumph, and we know that's not very reliable. But you know, BMW, you know, you got a lot of big brands, even a KTM standing next to some Chinese bikes. I say some because KTMs are known for being a little bit on the gnarly side when it comes to reliability, but even then, even those bikes tend to perform pretty well compared to a Chinese bike. But you know, I think you got a lot of horror stories of cheaply made Chinese bikes. I think that's changing. I know a friend of mine, friend of the channel, John, Big John, Butler John, he's saying back in the 80s and 70s people were saying that Japanese bikes were like, you know, oh, you want to get one of those for, you know, and look how that's changed, you know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you a Chinese bike aficionado? What Chinese bikes have you owned, and what Chinese brands do you rate? I quite like the look of the Keyway bikes, to be fair. You know, I think they look alright. Cruisers aren't my type of bike, but if I was to buy a cruiser, it'd probably be a Keyway because it'd be cheap. And they're doing some 300cc ones. I went to motorcycle show last year with another friend of, well, he's not a friend of the channel, he's just a friend of mine, guy I know called Stewie, and we went there and we had a look at some bikes and it was quite cool. And one of them was a Keyway 300cc, I believe. It looked alright. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until the next time, I have been your motorcycle aficionado, the Hungry Hornet. Remember to keep it locked on this channel for more engaging content. Cheers, bye bye.